Okay, and that brings us to a very special report. Item 9, curriculum conversation. Let me turn it over to Dr. Donahue.
Yep, I'm going to turn it over to Tim almost immediately. I just want to introduce this by saying our special report tonight is going to be about our technology program, and particularly about the growth that's happening at the middle school, some very exciting things happening there. And I think by way of introducing it, I want to extend a special thanks to the Byram Hills Education Foundation. You know, with the tax cap that's been in place for the past several years, the ability of any district to maintain programs is severely limited. Very few districts are able to actually initiate new programs. And by working in partnership with the foundation, which is well supported by our community, we've been able to do some remarkable things that allow us to move forward while many districts are struggling to stay where they are, if not move backwards. And on top of that, last night, the foundation approved some of its largest grants ever to support pilot programs in designing classrooms for the future, how classrooms might look for the future, and how labs, now that we're no longer bound by desktops, might look in the future. So I don't want to get into those at this point, but just by way of context. Tim?
Great, thanks. So you'll hear tonight about the middle school technology curriculum, and let me just back up a few years. We started a STEAM team about 3 years ago. We knew we needed to be doing something around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we were, at the time we started that team, we were still debating whether the A should be in it, whether the art should be part of STEM or not. That was part of our debate. When we started the STEAM team, it was a K-12 committee, and we weren't sure of what the vision of STEM was yet. We were still figuring out what it would look like, but we said, why don't we bring some good people together across the district? It was myself, the director of technology, the building technology consultants, and several teachers across every building who were interested in this work. And we just started to explore STEM and STEAM. We read some articles, we brought in some outside folks to teach us about what industry is doing and how we should be preparing our students for that industry. And out of that grew some really innovative stuff, like the Coleman Hill Makerspace came out of the STEAM team experimenting with some ideas. The Hour of Code, the interest in the Hour of Code happened. The 3D printer at the high school grew out of that. So it was after 3 years of thinking about it, under Dr. Taylor's leadership, really started to put together a vision for what a STEAM curriculum would be. And so what you're hearing tonight is sort of it coming together in real solid curriculum. So you're going to hear tonight about the middle school and what they're doing and how that will eventually grow and expand and hopefully get you a bit excited about where the future is going with this.
You know, I have to say that what you gave us in the board packet, the presentation, the interactive format was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for putting that together, and let me introduce those who put it together. So we'll start with our Director of Technology, is Dr. Taylor. You have Jackie White, who is our technology teacher at the middle school, and Dawn Selness, also technology teacher and our building technology consultant at the middle school. So she's part of our learning communities and works closely with all of the technology consultants as part of Andrew's tech team. So I want to thank all of you for being here. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to ask Andrew first to just give us some context for this and sort of what is the middle school tech curriculum, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty, and obviously the board can jump in and ask some questions at any time.
Sure. So thanks for having us tonight. Last year when we started to roll out the Chromebooks and we went to the one-to-one pilot in 6th grade, we started having conversations in the building, and Jackie and Dawn and I started talking about the technology curriculum and how, because of this infusion of technology, the needs of that curriculum is kind of changing and evolving. And when we started talking about it, we said, well, what are the core components of STEAM that we want to focus on, not just in the middle school, but K through 12 that we want to focus on. And we looked at 4 general areas. We've talked about that here before, but those are coding, robotics, 3D modeling, and electronics. And those 4 areas becoming the focus of the middle school curriculum. And then when we started talking about that, we said, well, we really don't want to teach that in a sort of traditional way. We want to think about a more innovative teaching model, which you've heard Tim talk about several times, going from direct instruction to student-led instruction, from textbook-based to problem-based, so that it's more real-world, authentic experiences for kids. And we started designing the curriculum with that sort of mindset. And I'm going to turn it right over to them so that they can give you a picture of what that looks like today. And I think you're going to see how exciting it is for them and for the kids in the classroom.
So I'll ask Jackie and Dawn, can you talk about what the tech curriculum in middle school used to be and sort of what is the content now that we're teaching kids? And while you're starting, I'm going to get our presentation. I realize I didn't put it up, so. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to get away with it tonight.
We can go back 3 years and say that our curriculum 3 years ago was teaching applications. How do students word process? How do they create a presentation? How do they use a spreadsheet? Well, what we found out that these students are already word processing using spreadsheets in K through 5. So when they were coming to the middle school, what are we doing? With the one-to-one initiative, we definitely had to change. So students had the tools and had the resources. Now what are we going to do? Well, with the grant from the Byram Hills Education Foundation, who gave us the application We Video, they have the music on their phones. They have the pictures on their phones. Well, let's take the music, let's take the pictures, let's write a story, let's put it together in a multimedia presentation. So they're taking all the components that they create and making something happen for them. In 6th grade, we do the first semester of 6th grade, we put together a digital presentation on digital citizenship. They do a multimedia presentation. They have to create a storyboard, put the music in, put sounds in, and that gets them introduced to 6th grade because it's a whole different building than the elementary schools. They have all these tools at their fingertips and then put them together. So they're being extremely creative, okay?
So what are the different elements of the curriculum? What's included in it?
So in our 6th grade now, we have the multimedia section that Jackie was just speaking about. The 6th graders also have a coding experience and a robotics experience. So each one of those are about 20 days. I can probably just use this. Of course.
Yes, on the presentation.
So you should have
This is also
this in your
packet as well.
packet. So for this year, which is the yellow section on the left, you can see the 6th grade, the 3 components that we were just speaking about. And then our 7th and 8th graders have a coding and robotics experience as well. Each of those experiences are similar because this is the first year we're doing that. Going into next year, we're looking at the 6th graders having those same experiences again that our current 6th graders are having. And then our 7th and 8th graders having already had experiences with coding and robotics, we're going to push them to the next level. So we're going to be incorporating things like Dr. Taylor was talking about, the 3D printing. Can you imagine having them use the robot that they programmed last year and then creating some sort of attachment for that robot to make it do something that they never thought it could do? So imagine creating a claw or something that you would program the robot to go pull a light switch. How would you do that? What would have to happen? And could you then create that model on a 3D printer and attach it to your robot? Using things like MIT's App Inventor to program the robots as well. So taking the basics of robotics programming and pushing that envelope. The following year, we're really excited about what our 8th graders will potentially do. A kind of capstone project where they're going to choose between multimedia, coding, and robotics, or possibly a combination of the 3, and choose a real-world problem or issue that they want to address. And how could they take all their content knowledge from 6th and 7th grade and bring that together and use that in their tech curriculum. So we're very excited about where it's going.
I guess some amazing skills that are being learned. Since they're short rotations out of necessity, because there are a lot of students and it has to fit into the overall day, I guess if someone is truly interested in coding, for example,
Absolutely.
how do they try to continue that knowledge along the way through, whether it's extracurricular or stuff they can do at home?
That's a great question.
And then I guess on the multimedia side, can you infuse it into other classrooms? Like can a social studies project, instead of being a paper, be multimedia once a semester or something like that?
So already we have so many of our teachers using multimedia in their classes. Our 8th grade teachers incorporate WeVideo in the silent film project in 8th grade. I was just walking by and I saw, what if Instagram had existed during X time period? So we see all these different uses of the applications that we're working on throughout the rest of the curriculum. We also offer, we just came back from the Hudson Valley First Lego League competition on Saturday from our robotics club. So we had 7 kids competing with robotics programming, which was really exciting. But that robotics club meets every week at HCC. We have a coding club that I run that meets every week at HCC. My door is always open. I say, you know what, you didn't finish your program, you want to finish your program, come in at lunch. Come to one of the clubs after school. So there's constantly opportunities for them to do it. And the things that Jackie's doing with coding, all these online programs, they could go home and work on if they wanted. And it tracks their progress. So kids who are really passionate about it have extra opportunities for sure to push themselves.
And I'd like to interject and add one thing. One of my 6th graders, we just started coding with 6th graders, and every day they have to reflect. And one reflection, which I hope you don't mind if I read to you, I enjoyed the site with music beats very much. When I went home, I created another one and showed it to my sister. I enjoyed coding, and I am now thinking about being a coder when I grow up. So the coding, robotics, it's self-motivating, they just love it, and it's their world. Every web page that they look at is coded. Every app they click on, it's coding. And when we stop and think about it, their world is filled with programs. From space shuttles to gas pumps to ATM machines. So it's their world that they're living in, and I tell them, you can change the world. They have the ability to be creative, to change the world through coding.
If you were teaching them a defined set of skills, that learning would have ended at the end. Once you get through those skills, the end of the time period, your learning stops, because that's what we set up for. But that's not the way they set up the courses. The way they set up the courses is by teaching them how to learn independently. So by learning independently and then showing them the resources online where they can continue that learning, the learning doesn't stop at the walls of the classroom. They can continue this or go on to other areas that maybe not HTML, maybe I want to learn a new type of language to do something different. It's the same skill set of how to learn the application.
So let's zoom into the classroom and how do kids learn this? So if you could talk a little bit about what's expected of students in the classroom, how do we structure the classroom environment so that kids do achieve this?
I think that you saw a video that Tim took in my classroom at some point or other, but I just want to show you this clip. Before I show you, this is one of the hardest challenges that the kids come across in the robotics curriculum, and you can see a picture of it in the lower left-hand corner. It's called the Orchard Challenge, and these 2 girls, Lucy and Rachel, these 2 girls, this is their conquering of the Orchard Challenge. So.
I'm good. She said there's a video of the up here. Really? Oh my god, so good. I was happy. Yes. Whoa, that's good. That was good. Yeah. Oh my god, I got it! Wait, this is our one mistake. Oh! That's one mistake. You guys got it. Oh, you got it!
So you can sort of hear the joy in their voices there.
I thought there was some gambling going on.
No, none of that. But the kids are motivated, they're self-directed, so they're working at their own pace through these series of challenges. And, you know, there's a lot involved in getting this guy to go through all those paces.
So talk about the beginning of that. Where do they start?
They
so
start
on day 1 of the cycle.
by getting this robot to move, and shutting down apparently on its own. Getting this robot to move forward exactly 50 centimeters. Now, that might not sound so hard, but when you're in 6th grade and you're working on understanding proportional reasoning, and the guy in the video, he's saying, make your robot go forward 3 rotations. Well, how in the world is that going to help me go 50 centimeters? Then they say, well, it went 50 centimeters. I'm like, did it really go 50 centimeters? So they get out the meter sticks and they're measuring, and each robot's slightly different because these are real world robots. They go between 51 and 52 centimeters for 3 rotations, usually. And then they have to take that information, set up a proportion, and figure out, because we're not about guess and check in the robotics classroom, we're about really proving how far we're going. So they set up their proportion, and that's the basis for all their calculations. And there's a lot of math involved in the robotics programming. So anywhere between 2 and 84/100ths to 2 and 91/100ths rotations. They can actually go up to 3 decimal places in their rotation, so depending on how, and it's really, one thing that's really, really funny is you think, you know, you got the calculator on your Chromebook, you got the calculator on your phone. They go to my whiteboard and they're writing all over the whiteboard to do their calculations, which is awesome. And then from there, after going 50 centimeters, they learn how to move the arm, which this one doesn't have its arm on right now, and retrieve cargo, and then they're learning how to turn. The video teaches them how to turn 180 degrees. We'll use that information to then turn 90 degrees. So again, with the proportional thinking. And the amazing, if I run this robot on this carpet, it's going to run different than it's going to run on the tile in my classroom. And the board that challenge was on, the turns run different on the board. So they learn about friction between the tires and the surface that it's on. And it just goes on from there. Ultimately, they get to sensors, learn how to program a touch sensor, so that, imagine the Roomba, right? Anybody seen the video for the little Roomba? So this guy has a touch sensor, and you program it to run into a wall, and then back up and run into another wall. And we keep track of all of this. Am I jumping ahead? Keep talking, check. Nice. So in my classroom, Andrew was talking about how it's a very different feel. It's a completely different, you guys, some of you had a chance to come in. We keep track on a spreadsheet that looks like this one, so putting the applications into practice. Each partnership identifies where they are in the process of these challenges. And they run at their own pace. If they need to rewatch a video, they rewatch a video. If they need to get up and test out their programs 15 times, that's what they do. And then when they're ready for me to see their programs, they call me over and I take a look, and they earn their points for each of those challenges.
So help me understand that. You have a classroom of 20 kids. They all seem to be at different paces.
They
So
are.
how do you manage that learning? How are students learning in that process and able to be at different places at the same, in one classroom?
It involves some letting go. So it definitely doesn't look like a traditional classroom. I don't expect to be the one giving them all their information. They're learning from each other. They're learning from the video tutorials. So I mentioned flipped classroom there. It's a model that is often used for kids to get that direct instruction at their own pace and then put it into practice in the classroom, so there's more time for action, which is great. It works. They look at what each other's doing. They go and say, "Oh, how'd you get that turn?" Or, "Oh, I used a tank turn," or "I used a move steering turn," and I don't remember so then they have to go back and look at what is a tank turn, and it's just incredible to see how I could leave my classroom for a day and they keep working. You know, they know exactly where they left off the class before, and they dive right in. I'm right across from the cafeteria, and often before the bell rings, most of my class will be logged on and already working before they even need to be in the room.
There's nothing they can do at home for this, though, is there?
There are things they can do at home, because the curriculum that we use, which was developed by the guys at Carnegie Mellon, the National Robotics Center, which is where I went for training, which was amazing, is an online web-based tutorial, so they could go in and watch the tutorials. They could look ahead, and The programming software versions of it are also available for kids who are really interested.
They just won't have a robots.
But there's a virtual version
virtual
that they can
version.
program.
It's so,
I'm dating myself, right? I
Right.
gotta go with that.
And you know, looking forward, we're getting, thanks to the foundation, the now robots are coming in, and so they're gonna be looking at programming in a variety of ways. Not just with these, but what that looks like between the Raspberry Pis and the Arduinos and all of these different aspects that we can bring together and make it so rich for them.
How can you explain a little bit about the student's personal coding journal? What's the thought behind that, and what do you hope to collect with that?
Okay, well, in both of our classes, there's no quizzes and no tests. And in the traditional classroom, how are students evaluated with assignments? We don't do that. So every single class period, students need to write in a personal coding journal reflecting what did they learn. So I know where they are. Again, I have a spreadsheet like Dawn that keeps track. They can see where they stand each time. And if you go to slide number 6, you'll see how students, when I say coding, they're like, what is coding, Mrs. Blake? And when I tell them that it's every web page that they're looking at, every student reflects every single class period. And these words tell me where they are. And did they stumble? And every 6th grader, 7th grader, and 8th grader do a personal coding journal. I write, they get, and as we talked about a different classroom mindset, you know, in a typical traditional classroom, an A is excellent. Well, in my traditional classroom, an excellent is an F. Okay, so they're getting an F, and I tell them, go home and tell your parents you're getting an F in technology, okay? And everything is backwards, but an F means they finished, an F means I understood what they said, okay?
Is it really necessary to do that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because they have to change their mindset. And I'm not teaching, I'm guiding. And they're self-motivated, they're self-directed, they're in charge of their learning. I'm guiding them. And one of the things Dawn and I use, which is working out remarkably, is an acronym FIO. Figure it out. Okay? So they're definitely going to be stumped programming the robot. They're definitely stumped in coding. Okay? And I tell them, when you start coding, you are going to make mistakes, you are going to be stumped. So they have to figure it out. How? They're going to ask 3 people before they ask me. And when they come and ask me, I'm going to say, okay, tell me who you spoke to and tell me what they told you. So they have to put in their mind and help problem solve also.
You're
So
shifting
if
the responsibility of
the teacher,
problem solving.
Right.
You know,
Right.
where you're not the one who's
Who's
answered
giving the answer.
the question, but guiding them and developing their skills and resources on how to learn? Is that fair to
Yes,
say?
and they, I have yet to have one student come to me and say, I can't figure this out.
Really?
Yes, it's amazing. They can rewatch the videos, they can reread. They've always figured it out. And if we can go to the slide with the collaboration, do you want to grab it?
Yeah,
Or do you want-
with the robots, we get the flashing green lights, and when the flashing green lights are going, I always say, you told the robot to do something it can't do.
And this-
It's telling you.
That's what it's telling you.
And what Dawn is going to show you, these 2 students had no idea I was videotaping them. And it doesn't matter what they're saying, but as you can see, they're helping each other out. The student on the left cannot touch the other student's keyboard, which sounds a little crazy, but as soon as one student touches another student's keyboard, there's no learning happening, there's no thinking happening. If I give this to Dawn and say, Dawn, what did I do wrong? She's gonna do it, I'm checked out. Okay, she's doing it. But with coding and robotics, you have to do it. So it's amazing, the collaboration, the students, they'll even say, did anybody get stuck here? Somebody will say yes, they'll get up, they'll move over to that other person, and they'll get their, it's amazing.
So Jackie, do you find over time as they're reflecting on their learning in these journals, are they accurate in their self-assessment of what they've learned and where they're stuck, and have they gotten better over time? Do they get better?
Their personal coding journal becomes a sheet for them to look back and reflect on. When their ultimate goal is to create a web page, and I give you 3 examples of the web pages, and they use this as a resource and a reference sheet. But as they move on, now I've only showed you the first 5 classes, but as we get to class 10 and 11, they'll say, I remember doing this, or I remember being stumped, but this has helped me now. So, and I give feedback every single class period. They have a chart that they look at. Some students, I don't understand what they're writing, so I have a T there, and that means they have to come talk to me because I don't know what they wrote. So it's just amazing. It's amazing to see them think the entire period. They are thinking, and they don't even realize they're thinking. They're having fun doing it. So, as you can see from some of their reflections, it's fun.
And how do you come up with the report card grade at the end?
Super question. Okay? Everybody wants an A, right? Including me, right? Including me. We all want A's, right? We all want A's. So, we've taken the A, B, C, D, and F, and we've created pass-fail. Okay? So there's no stress. So we're not saying you have to get to the Orchard Challenge. You have to get to, lesson 10 in coding. They're working at their own pace. If they have to go back, they can go back. So that takes a lot of stress off of the student that they're not striving for that A.
But there are expectations.
But,
that
big time expectations.
As they're in the room, we see the motivation in them, but the expectation is that you come in this class and you're working. You're working while you're there. You're engaged in collaboration with a partner in my room. You're communicating, getting feedback from partners in Jackie's room, and really focusing on those 21st century skills, the 5 Cs.
The day we were there, they were definitely working.
They are. And they get so excited. You can hear and I get so excited because I totally love what I'm doing, and the kids totally love what they're doing. And yes, we all get frustrated on occasion because this doesn't have a brain, and when your brain tells it to do something it can't do, that green flashing light can get annoying, but they always figure it out.
We know feedback is one of the #1 tools a teacher can use to improve achievement. And what's great about coding and robotics is the feedback's immediate for kids. And then it's not the teacher telling them, but it's the kid encountering this problem, and it's objective. You didn't do it right, says the code or the robot.
I had a student today say to me, Mrs. White, there's something wrong with my computer. He said, my program isn't working. And I said, really?
99.9% of the time, it's operator error.
Thank you, thank you. So
I have a question about the collaborative piece of it, but I just want to, for point of reference, I think it was just 5 years ago that the tech class involved putting a blind cover over the keyboard so people would learn how to type.
Exactly.
So come a long way, but I guess so is tech.
Well, today I told a student who had a cast on his writing wrist that on your phone, when you go to Google Docs and you press the microphone, you can talk to it and you can do your homework. There's no excuse. Sorry to interrupt.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. But on the collaboration piece, and I'm a total proponent of integrating the technology in and utilizing it and pushing forward, because I think people can do so much more and be so much more efficient with it. But I've also noticed over time that, one of the maybe unintended consequences of that are the people who can't read facial cues, et cetera, et cetera. These kids are at a very tender age when they have to learn at this age. They can't wait till they're 20-something to, have a real back and forth with somebody. And anyway, my concern is when you get to coding, you can go to Code Academy and just pour yourself in and go home and just be enthusiastic, and it's going to give you positive feedback, and you're going to learn, and a brilliant kid's going to come back with these huge... are there any... I know we've got collaboration in the classroom. We've probably got it in the clubs after school. But is anybody paying attention to a kid who, when they come back, spending 24 hours, 48 hours on the weekend and, trying to pair them with somebody and equally maybe enthusiastic and give them a joint assignment? Or because it only takes one other person to have that kind of...
And I think that's part of where we ultimately want to be in terms of that 8th grade open-ended project that I was talking about, to find like minds and work together and communicate that way. I mean, these kids have been immersed in tech from the time they could hold a device. At this point, our 6th graders, that's the world they grew up in, and that's the world they know. And so in the robotics classroom, where I'm forcing them to collaborate, they have to work with a partner when they're programming, because otherwise some of the nuances of the programming, they just need to communicate that with somebody and be that way. And in Jackie's room, they're working at a table with somebody, and there's constantly someone to refer to. We're always looking at their facial cues and really trying to puzzle out where frustration level can hit. We don't want them to hit, so we say FIO all the time, but we step in when we need to. And I think that that's a really critical piece of what we do. It's not as though we're sitting around and letting the room really run itself, because then that structure that we've put in place wouldn't work.
It may not be any different than the art world if somebody is isolating themselves at home and just pouring themselves into a particular medium.
I think at this level, there's always a certain level of which they hit a cap of where they can actually perform, and a lot of times they do come to us to talk about that. And for example, last year there was a student that was creating an app. He created an app to help monitor homework in the school. So it was an app where people could submit homework assignments so that the whole team knew what the homework assignments were due through this app that he created. And he got to a point where he didn't want to monitor it and have to put his hands on it anymore. He couldn't figure that out independently, so we sat down together to figure out different strategies of how he could do that. So there's always a point where we can intervene and say, okay, well maybe think about this, connect them with other people. And this year we're getting an intern from the high school that we can connect them with to get them, so that there's always going to be, no matter where they work, they're going to have to collaborate with someone because they're not going to know everything.
And interestingly enough, that same student has evolved that app because we're now posting homework. So it's sort of redundant, but now they're posting the schedule for the team, which I just think is very incredibly clever. That already they're learning how to transform what their goal is, and I think it's great.
And that's what I see happening for the 8th grade open-ended project. Our 8th graders will create real-world problems that affect them. Like, how do I keep track of my 8th grade schedule that changes every day? So, and they're going to create this, and it's just amazing because they're going to have all the tools.
A few of us were just at Coleman Hill yesterday, and we got to see them with the little cubelets. So it reminds me of this, they're coming up the ranks pretty soon, so
that means we're going to have to keep evolving. Like, we've made some huge changes, some huge shifts, but as technology continues to evolve, we have to continue to evolve with it. And I think that that's really important. So as excited as we are about where we're at now, that's one of the beautiful things about teaching, is that it doesn't stay the same.
I mean, just have those kids, what were they, 2nd grade? I mean, they're basically doing this, but probably in a simpler format.
What are they going to be able to do?
By the time they get up to it.
So we'll see in 3 years.
One of the teachers made the point that they intentionally aren't one-to-one with the Chromebooks. They, are working in groups with one book, so that they have to have that discussion and collaboration and figure it out together.
It's great.
Absolutely fascinating.
Which makes me Which makes me think as, we're thinking about the kids K-5 coming up into this curriculum, what's going to happen, and are we thinking about, now that we're doing this in the middle school, what might be available at the high school for these students who we're getting excited and giving them skills and tools at this age group?
So, thanks to the STEAM grant that we're rolling out right now, we're actually we have a skeleton of a K-12 scope and sequence right now, but what we're really doing is we're going to start developing curriculum at all the different levels within those 4 general areas, so that we really have a good understanding of what students are doing, and it's scaffolded in a way that we're really building students up throughout kindergarten through 12th grade. So we've been focusing a lot at the K-5 level now to really see what are the biggest skills that we can integrate into those areas, and not just as a pull-up program, but as an integrated program. So it's using these tools inside of a social studies class or a math class. So it's an integrated approach to embedding these tools. At the high school, though, we've really kind of push the high school coding, a lot of that curriculum right down into the middle school. So that high school curriculum now is evolving a lot. And we're rolling out this year, again, as part of that STEAM grant, we're rolling out wearable technology. So now they're going to start looking at wearable technology and how they can program wearable watches and things of that nature. So they're evolving their curriculum, and they're thinking about, well, what could they do next? Maybe it's integrated technology that actually works with the body, or biometric technology, and how do you code that? And so we're thinking about that. One exciting program that we're developing right now, we're calling it right now Project X. So that's kind of our name for it right now, but it's sort of an open-ended project that kids could opt into, where they work as an individual or part of a team on developing their own curriculum for a year. So they create a class, and in the end they have a product that they develop throughout the year with this teacher. Sort of think about science research, but instead of looking at research being the end product, product development or innovation is the end product. It might be that at the end they just have research. It might be at the end they have an application. It might be at the end they have a robot. It might be at the end they have some sort of theory or something they want to physically patent or something like that. But the ideal is to create an innovation zone as a class that they can integrate science into.
So you're thinking about it for the high school, you said?
For the high school, yeah.
We're still developing the curriculum and the description for it, and we'll be hearing more about it.
Sounds
That's
great.
exciting.
What is happening at the high school now? I know there are some electives that do some coding.
We have elective and advanced placement courses for coding, and then we also do embed some of the robotics and coding into some of the science courses and math courses as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything else? That's all from me. I think that gives you a little flavor of what's happening, unless you have some more inquiries. It's really exciting, and I do have to commend Dawn and Jackie, who have been putting a lot of time and energy into this.
You can see your enthusiasm. It's really contagious.
It's just amazing. And before we leave, can I just bring you to slide 7, please?
Yes.
Do you mind?
No.
I have to say, having toured your classroom a couple of days ago, was it, last week? The kids were really disappointed when the period's over.
Yes.
And, that really is a measure of some pretty engaged and enthusiastic learners.
And as Dawn said, I hardly have any students late, and they have to walk a little farther to my class than Dawn.
I've seen them give more late passes than any middle school teacher. Because the kids won't leave. We're literally pushing them out of, you have to go to class.
And in coding, they're so involved that it's the end of the period, and they're like, it went so fast, and it does. And what I'd like to bring to your attention, this was their end of the year, or the end of the semester, and the first one. I would describe my coding journal as a challenging but successful experience. In the end of it all, I learned how to create a web page and learned about everything that goes into a web page. I enjoyed learning all of this and think that it was a good experience for my last year at Crittenden. The students are learning problem solving, they're thinking constantly, and they're learning how to persevere, okay, which is amazing. Second one, I learned to understand computers on a deeper level. I already know how to build computers, and this has helped me get closer to my goal of working with code. I specifically want to go into game development, and this has helped me get me closer to my goal. And there's one that mentions he wants to work, or she wants to work at BuzzFeed, but my favorite is the last reflection, and I'll let you read that on your own. Cody.
Yeah.
Sister. That was my absolute, I had to put that in there. I mean.
Little does he know.
Yes, little does he know. So that'll come, I'm sure he'll come back and speak to me about that.
I
I
remember
like the
when
second to last
kids.
one, it's good too.
Second to the last one is great.
I remember
know,
when kids
I want to
wanted
read
be
them all.
cops and firemen.
I'm sorry?
I said I remember when kids wanted to be cops and firemen.
Yes.
Well, and I have my students reflect at the end of robotics as well, and I didn't include, we do video reflections, and, you know, they're amazing to watch, and at the end of them, I always say, is there anything you'd change about the cycle? And by far, the only thing that they really would want to change is to make it longer.
Yeah. That's good.
Maybe
Yeah.
we're going to develop an app to figure out how to put more hours in the day.
That may be it. Who knows? We don't know where,
More
and that's
hours
the
in
beauty of it. There's so much creativity.
It's amazing.
They can go anywhere with this.
We recently visited Google, and you probably heard about that trip a lot. But when we got there, we went there for space and how to use space. But we walked away realizing that the way they treat the workers there, the people that work there, and how their expectation for them to work independently, for them to work as part of teams, though, to be autonomous but actually accountable. And these are exactly the skills that we're using in this class. And so this is a good model of what a 21st century workspace really looks like.
It reminds me, Dawn, this was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a grant that was written, it was kind of an advanced PowerPoint, I don't know if you remember that software.
Blogster? Yeah.
And that at that point seemed so amazing to the extent that it had audio, visual, and
Right.
to even think about that as just a software that they learned how to develop, to now they're actually almost building the software.
Exactly.
It's really moved along quite quickly,
And
which
so it's
is,
constant change and constantly keeping up with things. And I think it's really important for the kids to see us constantly learning. We can't possibly keep up with all of the new technology. And so that goes to part of that figure it out is we have to figure it out too. Oh, what happened in Google? Google makes over 300 updates a year. That's almost one a day. How can I know exactly what fixes Google made? Like they changed the drive from one day to the next. I was doing a huge workshop for teachers. Oh, now there's a new drive. Oh, we're gonna figure it out. Because that's what we do.
And you have demonstrated that, of just always being learners, and that is that shift in the classroom instruction that the teacher isn't the expert anymore. It's our collective expertise that will help us do this. So, again, I thank you very much for coming out tonight. Thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
For all your support.
But thank you for the energy you brought to this. Really, it's refreshing to see, not that others don't have it, but you really come here ready to go.
We are. You know what? It's crazy. It's crazy
Well,
when it's
it's
done,
great.
but we just have to be there.
And we feed off of each other and our enthusiasm.
Well, it's wonderful, and it's wonderful that a public school system can do this.
It is.
So, it's great,
We consider ourselves very lucky.
yeah.
We look forward to seeing how it evolves. I'm sure, Tim, you'll
Posted.
keep us up to date.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And hopefully we'll come back.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
would be lovely.
We'll have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you very much.